Hello, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. And in this particular video, I want to talk about whether doing two master's degrees, like a master's in science and an MBA, is actually better than doing a PhD. And this is really thinking about whether it's actually easier to find a job. And this is sort of a very practical utilitarian sense to find a job if you have these two master's degrees versus a PhD. So the short answer, oh, by the way, so if you don't know, I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can because there's lots of people that help me out along the way. So I thought this would be really cool if I could give back and do something that is hopefully going to be bigger than myself. So the short answer to this question, whether two masters is going to be easier to get a job than it is to get a PhD, the short answer is absolutely. It is for sure easier to get a job with a master's in science or master's in math or something along those lines and a MBA or something along those lines, right? So now you might be thinking, now why is that the case? What is going on there? Why does it make sense to do a master's and an MBA versus doing a PhD? You have to think about the supply and demand of those particular degrees. So a PhD is a really specialized thing that you are doing, and there's only a limited number of people. First of all, there's only a limited number of spots that are available across the world for these particular positions that people kind of understand what you're talking about. So this is going to be at universities and different research institutes. And then as well, there's only a few number of people that actually go do a PhD. So there's not a lot of information in the marketplace about that and what it actually means. Part of the reason why I'm actually doing this YouTube video is to get this sort of word out about that. So a lot of people, even if they are really wanting to take a lower sort of position in their particular career, if that makes sense, if they do a PhD, they do find a hard time even finding a job because of that. So what is going on here? The reason is so here's the crazy thing that I find really unusual is even if you do a PhD, you generally have a lot more sort of skill sets in a particular area. So if you're going in a business route and you're doing a PhD in business, you often have to get an MBA and then you go do a PhD. And then it's harder to actually get a job if you have the MBA and PhD than it is just to have the MBA. So it means that the person that has a PhD is generally a lot more skilled. They're skilled in actually teaching people those particular topics that you would understand in an MBA. So it's really kind of strange. And I think the key thing is because, and actually I'll give you an example of this. One of my family members is a recruiter, and he told me that sometimes it's actually better that you actually just remove the PhD off of your resume if you're thinking about anything like that. And I thought that was really strange because he said that it was just people are intimidated or, it makes it really hard for you to sort of, or them to think about this. And even in business schools, it is extremely common, and it's called salary inversion, where the students, the MBAs that are getting jobs and they're in their first year, they're making more money than the professors themselves. That is not, particularly at the top schools in the country. That is really very, very common to see this kind of behavior happening in business schools. And it seems strange because the people are actually teaching them are actually teaching the skills to actually go out and do that kind of stuff. But what is really going on there is because I think a big part of it is the marketplace doesn't have any information about what it means to do a PhD. And it's really kind of uncommon to do those kind of things, right? So it is kind of peculiar that people are actually going in those particular routes. And so you're often better off just doing a master's and an MBA degree. So you did a master's of science and do an MBA degree than it is to do a PhD, because you can go in one particular direction and actually get more sort of industry jobs opened up. So here's the caveat though. So why do people actually do a PhD? And there's actually a great paper, Scott Stern, he's now at MIT, but at the time he wrote it, he's at Northwestern. And he wrote this paper that showed that scientists actually take a significant pay cut to actually do a PhD versus sort of pursuing not doing the particular PhD or doing this sort of research route. Now, what is going on, and the reason why people actually choose a PhD, and this is what you have to think about, is you're pursuing something that you're willing to take a pay cut because it is a luxury, right? So you're doing something that's more in line with what you're interested in, and you are actually pursuing basically the thing that you want to pursue. So if you think of your bucket list, this is what I always tell my PhD students. Your bucket list is all the things that you want to do in your life before you kick the bucket, right? So you remember that old movie. And that's really what you can do with a PhD. You could pursue the things that you'd like to do and do it without, pursue it in a certain way and study it in such a way that not a lot of people get that particular luxury to do that kind of thing. So that's the thing to think about going forward, is you're actually taking a pay cut because you're pursuing this thing. It's probably a little bit idiosyncratic and people don't understand what you are currently doing. But in the long run, hopefully if you're pursuing that thing, it actually makes a difference in this world, which is a lot more than what a lot of people can say, because it actually is pretty influential. Not in the short run, but in 20, 30 years out, some of the stuff that actually gets done, particularly if you're doing something that is truly novel, it does make a large impact in the long run. So that's what I'm going to say here. So it is easier to actually do 2 master's degrees versus a PhD. And if that's your motivator, is sort of the utility of the particular degree, then by all means, it's probably the way to go. But if you're thinking of doing a PhD just for the sheer love of the research and pursuing a particular thing that you can't possibly pursue without doing that, then a PhD offers a tremendous amount of value. And lots of people, you talk to a lot of people that have pursued this route, they'll say that, but they'll also say it's extremely tough and it is a challenging thing to get. But they'll also say that it is, if they do it, they often say that they personally have grown and developed as a person, and it's very much worth it for them. And it's up to you whether you are willing to take this sort of sacrifice going forward. So that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this answer. Give me a thumbs up if you appreciate it. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. I do appreciate it very, very much so. You're awesome. All the people that have done that so far. Crazy that there's 460 people now that have subscribed to this YouTube channel. Thank you. So that's it. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.